Happy Wednesday with the Word. Today we're going to look at the end of Ruth chapter 4, starting in verse 14. It says this: Then the women said to Naomi, "Blessed is the Lord who has not left you without a redeemer today. And may his name become famous in Israel. May he also be to you a restorer of life and a sustainer of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him." And then Naomi took the child and laid him in her lap, became his nurse, and the neighbor women gave him a name, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." And they named him Obed. He is the father of Jesse, and that is the father of David. So, what a fantastic verse and a great way to end the book of Ruth. Here's what happens, right? There's two things that I think are really significant. Number one, we see this great picture of the way these women, these kind of grandmother characters, recognized Obed, who he was. They looked at him and they didn't see him just as a blessing to Ruth. Ruth was the one that gave birth to him. Ruth and Boaz were the parents. But instead of seeing that just as that blessing, they saw him as a blessing both for Naomi and also for generations to come. So wouldn't it be cool if we as the people of God looked at the blessings that we see as blessings for all kinds of generations? Wouldn't it be cool if I looked at a child and I thought, this is a picture of God's great grace? It's a picture of God's great grace for me, but also God's great grace for my parents and my grandparents, and also for the neighborhood around me. What if I looked at the blessings that I have financially or spiritually or emotionally and thought, that is a blessing for all of the people in my household and all of the people that live within a mile radius or live within my city? So that's one thing that's really amazing, the way that they transferred that blessing all across the board. How cool would it be if we considered the blessings of God to be that big and that mighty? But the other thing that's really intriguing is the fact that these women, they name Obed, right? So these are the same women I think that we would have seen in Ruth chapter 1. In Ruth 1, verse 20, Naomi comes back with Ruth back to Bethlehem. When they get to Bethlehem, they see all of these women come to gather around Naomi, and they say, "Hey, look, there's Naomi." And Naomi says, "Nope, you can't call me Naomi anymore. Naomi is the name that means whimsical, but I'm not whimsical. I'm not full of life anymore. In fact, I'm broken. I'm done. You can't call me Naomi anymore. Now you have to call me Mara." Mara means bitter. And so here at the end of the story, after Ruth and Boaz have connected, after that Redeemer relationship has happened, then these same women kind of gather around and they say, "Hey, we recognize that for a little while you were so hurt, Naomi. You went to the bitter spot. You went to Mara. But now God has redeemed you. He's taken what was ashes and turned them into new life. He has brought life out of death in you." And so to recognize that, we're going to name this grandchild of yours. I don't know how Ruth and Boaz necessarily felt about that, but here they go. They gather around and they look at this little child and they say, "Your name is Obed." And Obed is a word that means a couple of things. It means servant or it means worshiper. And how neat is that? That these women gather around and they say, to celebrate the fact that you are no longer bitter, but now you are better, that you've been brought back to life. To celebrate that, every time you look at your grandchild, you will remember that this is the testimony of God. And what is the testimony of God? Here's what I like most about that. It's that you and I, we have the same kind of testimony. How can you tell if I've come back to life? Well, you can tell by the way that I worship. In fact, I would consider it a sign that God has redeemed me when I serve Him, when I am walking around actively saying, "This is what God has done." You can tell that God is working in my life. You can tell that He's brought me back to life. You can tell that I am alive again and redeemed because I'm a servant of God. So you and I, we choose today. Will you choose bitter or will you choose better? Will you choose life or will you choose death? Will you choose?